Attending one of the top 20 high schools in California really changed my high school experience. The teachers and administration put such an emphasis on maintaining our reputation as the top school that they seemed to lose sight of the purpose of education and more so focus on being number 14. Students are under constant pressure to get perfect scores and get into perfect colleges, and the stress of having to maintain a certain ranking makes it even worse. Many students have felt the pressure so immensely that they have committed self-harm and even worse, suicide, and the school has done nothing to change their ways and alleviate the pressure they put on the students. Sydney Sorokin, Canyon Crest Academy, class of 2016. There is an excessive amount of stress and pressure placed on high school students, and there are many consequences of that. This topic is important because so many high school students feel an absurd amount of pressure to excel in the first place. However, the fact that schools add to that pressure because they are worried about the reputation of their institution is a serious issue. This is of interest to me because I too can relate to the pressure high schools put on their students to maintain their status and reputation. I think high school students already feel so much pressure, and it is a serious issue to consider that some of these students are pushed so hard to thoughts of self-harm. The fact that schools add to the pressure of high school students because certain institutions are worried about their reputation is a serious issue and something that needs to be resolved so we can avoid cases of burnouts and self-harm. Today, I will discuss how stressful high school already is with the unattainable expectations. And then I will go into, although there are benefits to elite and privileged schools, they are a huge factor in the issue. And finally, I will discuss the consequences of the high pressure system. I first think it is important to talk about the everyday stress that high school students feel. High school in of itself is incredibly stressful, and students are expected to have stellar grades and be involved in extracurriculars in order to be well-rounded individuals. However, those stresses of grades along with activities excessively pushes students to an unhealthy state. In a study from an article in The Atlantic that surveyed and interviewed students, it was found that approximately half of them were chronically stressed. Between the amount of homework, the pressures of AP classes and exams, SAT and ACT prep, along with sports practices and other extracurricular activities. These experiences can cause kids to burn out by the time they get to college, or to feel the psychological and physical effects of stress for much of their adult lives, says Myra Guadz, a senior research scientist at the New York University College of Nursing. It is important to recognize how the unattainable expectations that are put on high school students have a serious negative effect on students' health and well-being. These expectations are not necessarily felt at every school, and although privileged and elite schools prepare students very well, they are also a huge factor in this dilemma. According to a research report, Perpetuating Privilege, Students' Perspectives on the Culture of a High-Performing and High-Pressure High School, students demonstrated their experiences and described a high-pressure school with negative physical and psychological consequences. In another study looking at the pressures in elite suburban high schools, the students exhibited high rates of clinically depressive symptoms among older girls, significant links between various internalizing symptoms, and substance use among both boys and girls, and peers' approval of substance use among older boys. This shows the pressures of an elite school leading students, both boys and girls, to the use of drugs and alcohol due to stress. This is very unhealthy for kids to get involved in things like that at such a young age. Although the stress and pressure can be felt at any kind of school, it is important to realize that based on extensive research and studies, it is significantly worse in elite and privileged schools. Not only do the schools put the pressure on the students, but the students are raised to fulfill certain expectations. Unfortunately, these expectations can have a cost. Based off recent tragic events, the amount of stress and pressure can lead students to think irrationally and commit acts of self-harm. In an article from the Chicago Tribune, Naperville North High School recently had a student commit suicide due to the unbearable stress they felt while trying to attain a certain status. They are not the only school that has seen awful consequences such as that one. Within the past 2 months, Canyon Crest Academy in San Diego, California, has seen 2 suicides due to the excessive amount of stress and pressure they were feeling to keep up with their work and meet expectations of their families and their school. According to an article from the U.S. News, in 2018, CCA was ranked 14th within California and number 132 in the nation. They also earned a gold medal, which was dependent on their performance on state-required tests and how well their students are prepared for college. The pressure to keep up with these rankings is felt among the students and leads to burning out and, in some cases, even worse consequences, such as self-harm or suicide. Considering we have all been through the trials and tribulations of high school, we understand the stress and pressure. However, it has gotten to new levels, especially with elite and privileged schools and the high expectations put on students. The stress felt among students in any high school is very relatable. However, the stress and expectations placed on students, especially from elite and privileged schools, to maintain their reputations in some cases is unbearable. I know I felt stressed in high school. Between SAT preparation, taking 6 AP classes, having cheer 5 days a week till 7 p.m., and on top of that, applying to colleges and trying to prepare for life at college, I'm surprised I did not have a mental breakdown almost every day. But the fact of the matter is, there are students across the nation that simply can't keep up with the stress and the pressure and are fully suffering the consequences. Students' mental health needs to be a priority, and there should not be multiple student suicides when they can often be avoided. It is time for these schools to get their priorities in order and realize the changes they need to make to save their students.